One way to increase your exposure is to offer a free or paid maintenance plan. You can figure out how to structure it and what makes sense, but imagine if you have an annually recurring service and all of a sudden 17% of your customers had you or someone from your company visiting them each month or quarter to document something or to perform some small maintenance task. What has just happened? You're now on their property 4 to 12 times as often. You've just put yourself in contact with them probably 12 to 36 additional times each year if each visit includes a reminder that you're coming, contact point. You actually go and do the thing and talk to them whilst you're there, contact point. And then you follow up after, perhaps sending them a job report or other documentation of the visit, contact point. What else can you add into that little dance? How can you choreograph all of those additional steps? Hey you, I'm Mark, husband of one, father of three, maker of puns, climber of trees, grower of businesses, pitcher of tents, occasional cutter of cheese, word nerd, and lover of families. Oh no. Oh no, not yet. No. Oh, here he comes. Where's my oar? Showed that Kraken who's boss. At least until like 2 p.m. this afternoon. I think I'll be due for another attack by then. Let's jump into it. Hey, welcome to all of you, bandits and chilies. This episode is called Decoy, Duck, and Increasing Your Average Ticket. There's a bit to cover in this episode in terms of diving into this topic, and there's also 2 announcements. So, let's get quacking. You have internal false beliefs and external false beliefs which impact your thinking and your actions. So, external false beliefs may be related to what's happening in the economy, how other people think or behave. For example, no one would want to buy that, or successful people just don't have the struggles that I do. These things are largely outside of your control, and yet the beliefs that you hold, even on things that you cannot control, will impact your thinking and therefore the action that you do or do not take on what you can control. Likewise, internal false beliefs relate to things that you can control and about your own view of yourself. You might think, if it needs to be done right, I need to do it. Or, earning too much money, even wanting too much money, makes me a bad person. Or, money is hard to get. Or, I'm not good at sales. Or, I don't have enough time. These beliefs may often be even deeper wedged and even less coherent than anything you've ever consciously thought. If on a really deep level you hold the belief that more money, whatever that means, equates to moral bankruptcy, then guess what? You won't take actions that will result in you making more money, whatever that means. Because that equation would basically amount to sell yourself out, everything that you stand for, your core identity, ditch all your principles and become this inherently evil person just so that you can have some large numbers displayed on your banking app. Your inner self is not going to make that Faustian pact. But the reality is that this isn't some deal with the devil. Money is a tool. You can use a hammer to put some nails in and build your kids a cubby house. Or you can use a hammer to bash your neighbor's head in. The hammer is just the tool. If you're not the kind of person likely to bash your neighbor's head in, then there's no moral issue with you having a hammer. Money is a tool, and the specific tool that it is an amplifier. Money amplifies what is already present within your character by enabling your will on the world to have further reach. You have this tool, this resource, available to you in greater quantities than before. And so if you want to do nice things as a family, you have a larger budget. If you want to exert a positive influence in your community, you have a larger budget. If a need suddenly pops up, you have the option to exert your resources to create a solution. Myron Golden talks about this and makes the point that many people like to say that they just want to have enough money to be comfortable. I just want to be comfortable. He highlights 2 really interesting things about that mentality. Firstly, that's just basic survival. You just want to have enough money to pay for the necessities of life and survive. What kind of financial goal is that? And secondly, that is actually completely selfish. If you only have enough money for your comfort, for you to survive, to cover your needs, then you don't have anything to help someone else. You haven't factored anyone else into your financial situation at all. Now, of course, that's not to say that there's anything wrong with people who do this. It's just a part of mental conditioning, their background, all of these factors that led them to that conclusion. But the point that this underscores is that this false belief in that person's head as they say that They really believe that to be true. And yet, when tested, it's easy to see that objectively, if they're not the kind of person that would bash their neighbor's head in with a hammer, it's probably better for everybody if they have more resources at their disposal. Another related point to all of this is that facts become narratives, and narratives become facts. We cannot control our first thought. For example, if you stub your toe, your first thought is going to be an outpouring of subconscious beliefs and pre-programmed reactions to that kind of event. Without thinking, you might say to yourself, "Of course that would happen to me. Such a Jason thing to do." Or, "Right now, that's all I need." Or, "You idiot, Michelle, you would stub your toe." Or perhaps, "It's going to be one of those days." Just like that, you've written off the rest of the day based on this one incident, this one fact that became a narrative. If you developed your subconscious beliefs over a long period of time spent cultivating the garden of your mind, then you might instead think something less dramatic and more positive, such as, "I'm glad I'm here to feel this pain. I'm grateful for this problem because it means I can walk." Or, "You'll have to try harder than that, wall." But regardless, you can take charge by the second thought. You don't control the first thought that comes into your mind, but just as in tennis, if you're receiving the serve, you get to return the serve, and that return of serve is like your second thought. I feel like I've quoted this so many times on this podcast, but Jill Bolte is a brain scientist, and she has this quote that we are feeling beings that think, not thinking beings that feel. And that's biologically true. Literally, within the brain, when you stub your toe, that is energy in motion. Emotion, and it travels as a signal from the point of impact right up to your brain, and in your brain it reaches the amygdala before it reaches the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala is completely incapable of what we would consider to be rational thought. The amygdala's job is to process inputs from all sorts of energies in motion, emotions, and determine if you are okay or not. Sights, smells, touch, taste, sounds, and stubbing your toe on the kitchen bench are all data points that the amygdala processes really quickly. It sends these for cataloging and memory storage, but before that, it classifies what this data means for your overall state of being. The amygdala is responsible for your fight or flight response, but short of that kind of extreme, it can cause you to feel tense, increase your heart rate, and affect your breathing. All manner of things which impact your state of being. How are you? Are you well? Are you okay? Are you stressed? This is why a lot of times it's really hard for people to identify the causes of their anxiety, for example, because the reaction is coming from a subconscious part of the brain. It isn't a thought that you've consciously held in your mind and been able to formulate into words, to pick up and to turn it around, examining it. No, it's this deeper, hidden process. We are storytelling creatures. We instantly turn everything into a narrative. So with the stubbed toe, the fact was that you stubbed your toe on the bench or the wall or whatever. That was the fact, data point. And maybe the narrative was, "You're an idiot. The kind of stupid idiot who would go and stub his toe, you moron." At the same time, we also turn narratives into facts. Here's a few quotes from a few interesting people that bear this out. "If you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it, and you will even come to believe it yourself." Joseph Goebbels. "A lie told often enough becomes the truth." Vladimir Lenin. "If a lie is only printed often enough, it becomes a quasi-truth. And if such a truth is repeated often enough, it becomes an article of belief, a dogma, and men will die for it." Isa Blagden. "We tell ourselves lies all the time. The facts are the facts, but the stories are simply the meaning that we attribute to those facts." To take another example, have you ever said, "I don't have time for that"? That's a story, not a fact. By itself, it's not true at all. Regardless of what the thing is, it isn't that you don't have the time. The truth statement is, I'm choosing not to prioritize that thing right now, because you're choosing to prioritize other things. That's fine, but let's just be honest about it. You have the same amount of hours per week as Elon Musk, as Dan Martell, as Alex Hormozy, as anyone who you've ever looked up to in terms of the amazing feats that they have achieved. So to say, "I don't have time for that," is a false narrative and an internal false belief. Okay, it's time for announcement number 1. A few episodes ago was the episode Frappe, the secret coffee kick formula to make your business grow faster. This episode covered the concept of isolating 6 specific areas within your business, making intentional tweaks to them, and, in return, getting massive outsized results. FRAPPE stands for frequency, referrals, average ticket, price, production rate, and expenses. If you haven't listened to that episode, go and lend it an ear, as it goes into much more detail and value on the subject than this episode will. This first announcement is the smaller of the two. You can get your free DIY profit guide called FRAPPE Lite, which is linked to in the show notes. This 18-page document dives into the concept of FRAPPE and gives 16 specific tools to install FRAPPE into your business. So download your free copy from the show notes. Okay, now we're pivoting from the entree on mindset into the meal of today's topic. Duck meat, that is. Well, actually, this is kind of a faux duck meat since the acronym is D.U.C.C. So, Decoy, Upsells, Cross-Sells, Choreography. I've just completed a 10-week coaching program with Joshua Latimer on FRAP, which is the basis for FRAPPE as per the announcement. I added the last 2 letters. Josh is cool with it. The cost of that FRAP group coaching, by the way, was $7,500 US, and it was epic and awesome. And this duck thing that we are about to talk about is specifically from Josh on the topic of average ticket. Basically, each element relates to a genre of tactics that you can use to increase your average ticket. So let's dissect our faux duck here a bit and start by defining each piece before we look at how each of those pieces can be deployed in your business specifically to increase your average job size. Do you need a minute? Are you ready? What do you mean you don't have a pen? Come prepared, Micah. Always bring a pen. Alright, here we go. Ready or not? Decoy. Dan Ariely was intrigued by The Economist's subscription model. They offered readers 3 options: $59 for a digital subscription, $125 for a print-only subscription, and finally, $125 for both print and digital access. Dan tested this on 100 MIT students. First, he presented them with 3 options and asked them to pick one. 16% of the students chose the cheaper online subscription. 84% chose the print and web subscription. And nobody chose the $125 print-only subscription. Then, he removed the $125 print subscription, the option that nobody picked, and asked a different group of students to pick from the remaining 2. This time, 68% picked the $59 online subscription, and only 32% picked the print and web subscription. Isn't that interesting? An option that nobody in their right mind would pick was responsible for a shift of a whopping 52 percentage points in the direction of the more expensive subscription tier. This is the power of a decoy. It is an option presented within your pricing to make other options look more appealing. This is also known as the asymmetric dominance effect. What happens is that you might have 2 options which are priced proportionally to their value. Let's say that there's a small and large cinema popcorn, and the small is $8, the large is $16, and it's roughly double the size. Well, this is an arbitrary decision. You are getting the same value for money, whichever option you choose. However, if there is a medium option that is priced at $14.50, all of a sudden that asymmetric dominance shifts the equation of comparison in favor of the large popcorn. In terms of the average ticket in your home service business, decoys can work in a few contexts. Firstly, package pricing. You should present your pricing in packages. It's a whole thing. There's a gajillion benefits. If you want to nerd out about it and learn how to do this in your business, book a call with me, link in the show notes. But definitely present package options. Having done that, give some thought to which option actually works best for you and weight your pricing and presentation towards that option. This can be done by price anchoring with a price marinade. Price anchoring is where you put a large figure out before the smaller ones. So you should present your highest priced option first. This means that your prospective customer now has a high reference point through which to view all of the prices that follow. Price marinade is how long you can let them sit with that price before moving on to the cheaper options. For example, let's say that this is carpet cleaning and you present the most expensive package option first. You tell them that this includes a triple pass clean with rotary agitation, hot water extraction, drying pads, and air movers to help speed up the drying time. Then you tell them the price. This package happens to be, $2,200. Then you say, oh, and I forgot to mention, it also includes a stain treatment budget of X amount, which is normally separate for any stains that don't come out from the clean itself, and this other inclusion, whatever it may be. Then you move on to the next option down in the pricing. What you've done in that is you've bought yourself an additional 30 seconds. Maybe you can stretch it out to a minute, where you've hit them with that first price and then you've let them marinate in that first price before moving on to the other options. They now have had the high price anchor and they've sat with it, that price marinade. You can also include other things within your package pricing options that weight the value asymmetrically. For example, guarantees, speed to service, free bonuses that have a high perceived value but that actually cost you next to nothing. Again, that's a whole thing. We work through this in impactful detail in my paid program. If you think that you may be interested in sussing that out, book a call in the show notes. Doesn't hurt to have a conversation. Maybe it's a good fit, maybe it's not. Moving on to the U in our DUCC, upsells. You know all about upsells and what they are. We're actually going to take this two at a time and include the first C as well, which is cross-sells. So upsells is when you sell the customer more of the thing that they just bought. This could be literally doing more work, a larger section of a job, or booking their mum's house in as well as theirs, or it could be selling them a more expensive version of the thing that they just bought, a higher tier package option. Cross-sells, on the other hand, is selling them a separate service, adding hedge trimming to a lawn mowing job, booking to clean their gutters as an add-on to their house wash. At first, this distinction may seem arbitrary and perhaps like a way to fill out letters in an acronym. Well, 2 points on that. Firstly, and most importantly, if the acronym was only with one C, it would still be DUCC, and I would still be referring to it as a faux duck, and all of the same lame references to getting into the meat of it and dissecting it would still apply. Secondly, distinguishing between upsells and cross-sells becomes more important when you want to get very specific and targeted with the tweaks that you will make in your business processes so that you can benefit from them and increase your average ticket. So, with upsells, it's a good idea to have a specific strategy matched out for each service and job type. For example, let's say that you run a painting business and you've sold a job. The client picked the 2-coat option. What would be a good upsell strategy to aim for selling them a 3rd coat of paint? Perhaps when you got to the actual paint on the wall stage of the job, you start in the room with the starkest contrasting colors to the selected color that you're painting with. Then, once you've done 1 coat or 2 coats, you can highlight to the customer your concern about how this room, the first one to have 1 or 2 coats, is coming along. For only an extra $3,590, we can add a 3rd coat to the entirety of the job and it will blah 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 blah. With cross-sells, documentation is king. This can start with Joshua Latimer's simple professional recommender script. I noticed blank, I recommend blank. This takes the pressure off your techs. They are not salespeople, they are professionals, professionally noticing and professionally recommending. Let's say that this is for a house wash job and the professional professionally says, I noticed that your gutters have some grass growing in them on the east side, and also there's a lot of black mold and mildew on your side path. I recommend getting those taken care of. We could book that in for next week. The client says no, or that they'll think about it, or some such. Then, this is documented by the tech in their job report. They take photos, give an estimate of the time to complete the works, and make a note that they mentioned it to the customer and their response. After the job is completed, your admin gives the client a quality call to make sure that everything went well with the service. During the call, they say, I'm not sure if Chris mentioned this to you or not, but he's noted here on his job report that there are some blockages in the gutters and growths on the side path. I can send you a copy of the report after this call and you can see the photos. If you like, we could book this in for you for next week. Does Monday or Wednesday work best for you? If they still don't take you up on it, you could use this same documentation in your follow-up. You could offer them a discount when you're quiet. You could aim to book it in conjunction with their next repeat service. Documentation empowers all of those additional swings at the ball, and many more that I didn't even touch on. Lastly, choreography. Goodness, this is a massive topic. In fact, it's so big that I think it calls for a quick dad joke break. A duck joined the theatre in the hopes of starring in an upcoming musical. Gwen, the head of casting, was surprised when Walter, the choreographer, was open to having a duck join the show. Walter could be such a grump, and Gwen assumed that he would simply rule the duck out for, well, being a duck. But Walter really gave him a chance. Unfortunately, the duck couldn't keep up and really struggled with the rhythm of the routines. Grumpy Walter emerged, and day by day in rehearsals he was yelling at the duck, "You've got 2 webbed feet," and "You're ducking when you should be bobbing." Some of the other dancers felt sorry for the duck, and when inevitably he was dropped from the show, they checked in to make sure that he was okay. Of course, he was fine. It was just Walter off a duck's back to him. Alright, choreography is the manner in which you do everything that you do. Being really intentional about how you orchestrate the service right from the initial point of inquiry all the way through to following up with them 3 years after the booking. You've probably heard all of this before, but when was the last time that you reviewed your choreography? When was the last time that you took a look at your customer's journey through the various stages of your business and gave specific thought to how you could utilize different points of contact with that customer to add value, to upsell, to cross-sell, to get more frequent bookings, to get more referrals, to separate their experience with you so much from their experience anywhere else that they become rabidly loyal because they can't imagine dealing with another business for the services that you offer? As I said, this is such a huge topic, so I'm just going to list out 3 nuggets which were highlighted in the recent group calls I've had with Josh on this topic. Number 1, the elevator pitch. Craft a punchy 25-second elevator pitch and then take charge of all incoming calls by leading with, "Hello, this is Sean from ABC Cleaning. Are you an existing client or will this be your first time using our service?" If they are new, say, "Welcome. Do you mind if I take 25 seconds to tell you a few key things about our business? We operate differently from most and there's a couple of things that you'll want to know." Then, away you go. Tell them your unique selling proposition. Tell them about your referral program. Tell them about your contributions in the local community or how your staff are paid above market wages and are building a real future for their families within your company. Just think about the effect of this for a second. They now know the key things that you have decided are most important / most likely to make them want to buy from you. Also, they can't unhear the difference between what they just experienced on their call with your company and what they experience when they call the next 3 guys, 2 of whom don't answer, and the third one says, "Yeah, Jono here. Maybe you didn't like the way that my example just now sounded, and that's fine. Make it your own. But also, you can test it out for a bit and see what works. You don't have to be married to this thing and commit to it forever. Write something out and then try it for the next 25 calls. See what happens. Then tweak it based on what you've learned and try that for the next 50 calls. This is your first impression point with many customers. They've come fresh from your Google listing. They've clicked the call button from an otherwise androgynous business that they have forgotten the name of even as the dial tone starts. Is this weird and different and maybe a little awkward? Yeah. Is that in and of itself a bad thing? Not at all. Number 2, increase exposure. As you map out your customer life cycle, look for opportunities to add contact points. Use that increased exposure to refer them back to the previously mentioned documented cross-sell opportunities. One way to increase your exposure is to offer a free or paid maintenance plan. You can figure out how to structure it and what makes sense, but imagine if you have an annually recurring service and all of a sudden 17% of your customers had you or someone from your company visiting them each month or quarter to document something or to perform some small maintenance task. What has just happened? You're now on their property 4 to 12 times as often. You've just put yourself in contact with them probably 12 to 36 additional times each year if each visit includes a reminder that you're coming, contact point. You actually go and do the thing and talk to them whilst you're there, contact point. And then you follow up after, perhaps sending them a job report or other documentation of the visit, contact point. What else can you add into that little dance? How can you choreograph all of those additional steps? Well, you could include before and after photos from other jobs and services that they may be interested in, promotional videos, offers, reminders about your referral program, reminders about your community outreach, reminders about that thing that was due 4 months ago and still hasn't been done, a voucher to a local cafe. The possibilities are endless. Again, have you intentionally worked on your choreography recently? If you would like some help doing so in a way that will get you dollars in the bank results, book a call, link in the show notes. Number 3, custom service videos. For each service that you offer, or even for each tier of that service, create a 30 to 40 second video which explains it and shows it off. Once done, this can pair with everything else. All of those contact points that we just spoke about, this tool can be deployed. Cross-sells and upsells, your team now have a super quick visual way to show the customer exactly what they are recommending to be done. Okay, let's land the plane on this duck. Imagine if you had a document in your hands with all of this info laid out in an organized way. Imagine that you were going through this document with a group of other epic, like-minded people who are also leveling up in their business. Imagine that the document had 10 ready-made tools specifically to increase your average ticket. If that was the case, do you think that you could combine those pieces of DUCC and increase your average ticket by 10% due to Decoy offers, 10% from upsells, 10% from cross-sells, and 5% from choreography? Really, think about that for a second. Let's say that you're not really doing any of this stuff at the moment, at least not in a really well-structured, intentional way. 10% from decoys is nothing. That will happen with barely any effort. That is super easy. 10% from upsells. Do you think that with a well-structured system, you could upsell 1 in 5 jobs an additional 50% of their job price? I believe in you. I absolutely think that you can. Likewise with cross-sells, through documentation and perhaps even booking larger jobs later. Does 1 in 10 jobs resulting in an additional booking based on well-documented needs that you simply noticed and recommended around their home sound reasonable to you? Yeah, easy. If you had a system for that, I'm sure that you agree that 1 in 10 jobs at least has some extra things that they could benefit from having you do around their home. Lastly, choreography, 5%. That is such a low bar. Take the maintenance plan example above. You've just created an additional 36 contact points with that customer. And you don't think that you can sell them anything extra this year as a result? No way. Guess what? Those numbers, 10, 10, 10, and 5, that combines to 35% without compounding. And with compounding, which this absolutely does, by the way, because your decoy offers are still there when you upsell and cross-sell, for example, with compounding, it's a 39.75% increase to your average ticket. If you solved this one piece of the puzzle, if you actually took this and hammered the nail all the way into the board, you have just added the best part of 40% to your revenue for the year. You might have caught on that in the first announcement the profit guide was called Frappe Lite. So what does that mean? Well, that leads into the second larger announcement because that 18-page document is essentially the redacted version of the full 40-page physical course book that you get when you sign up for the 6-week Frappe framework. This framework is also linked in the description and will be commencing on April 9th, 2025. If you're listening from the future, hi, how's it going? Have we colonized Mars yet? There will be updated dates available through that same link for future iterations of this framework. However, sorry to tell you, there's a secret not to be repeated bonus in this very first one. So what's this 6-week Frappe framework and why the heck should you care about it? Guess what? Everything in today's episode is based on the average ticket portion of the 6-week Frappe framework. And this isn't even all of the stuff within that one part of the puzzle. This doesn't include the bonus section on team incentives, it doesn't include the 10 tools to increase your average ticket, and it didn't include the 25-page document, which is a bonus under one of those tools because that specific tool deserved its own little rabbit hole. These intentional 6 weeks and the specific tweaks within the tools provided are designed to double your business and maximize your profits. Skeptical? That's fair. So right now, click the link in the show notes to the sign-up page, and this is explained in more detail there. That's it. Have an awesome day. Make someone else's day awesome. Hug and kiss the people you should hug and kiss, and call or text someone who randomly popped into your head and check how they're doing. I love you, just the appropriate amount, like take whatever is weird and then take a healthy step backwards from that line. That's how much. Catch ya. Bye. Are you picking up what I'm laying down? Are you sniffing what I'm stepping in? If you're looking for a really valuable community centered around building your business, being really intentional with your spouse and kids, and if you think you can tolerate my terrible dad jokes, then join Family-Oriented Business Growers. It's awesome. There's self-paced challenges designed to help you solve key pain points within your business in short, intentional sprints. There's awesome people in there doing awesome things who have experience with stuff that can help you having stood where you stand. You'll benefit from what's in there, we'll benefit from having you in there, you legend you, and best of all, it's totally free and also free of toxic shenanigans because we don't tolerate none of that. The mission of the group is to help 250 family-oriented home service business owners reclaim 5 hours per week for what matters most whilst growing their business this year. So jump in there and get amongst it. Join via warplan.au, that's warplan.au. Oh no. He's early. Warplan.au. Catch you in there.